So, obviously this is long overdue. I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me like, yo, if there's anybody that you need to get on the show, you need to get Ricky Reynes.
Man, I appreciate that.
And it's finally happening. What's good, man?
Man, living the dream.
Wake up in the morning, I'm focused in on what really matters. And these rappers still chatter as if it even matters. Stack money like books, I'm on my next chapter. Cause at the end of the day, what are you really after? 5% of my salary goes to charity. I'm engaged to success. Who'd have known it would marry me?
I'm happy to be here doing this with you. You talk about it being long overdue. We've spoken about it, and it just never aligned up. But it's here now. And what a better time than now, coming off of a win for the Panthers, man.
I mean, tell you.
We could both be in a really good mood talking about this.
Exactly. And I'm so glad that we chose this time because, man, it would have been tough. Man. I ain't gonna lie, man, because 8 years, buddy. 8 years. Starting off 0-2 was rough. And so I'm glad you mentioned that, man, because I want to just get right to it. I have a question. Mm-hmm. Which Panthers are the real Panthers? Is it to you, the 0-2 Panthers? Or is it the 30-0 shellacking Panthers?
It's a really good question, and it's a really difficult question for me. But I think that the true Panthers are somewhere towards the middle of both of those. I don't think that they're 0-2. I don't think that this is a poor football team. Mm-hmm. I also don't know necessarily that the 30-0, as much as I love it, and I'm going to defend that 30-0 shellacking.
Yeah, exactly.
It's still my last breath, right?
Yeah, straight up.
It might be my next tattoo. It might be a neck tattoo right here, just says 30-0.
Right.
But for me, I don't know that that's should be expected to be a consistent thing. What I do think, though, is that the new pieces on both sides of the ball were intentional. And sometimes, man, it's like you could come up with a great plan. You could be an idea man, but can you execute it?
Yeah.
And I think what we're seeing is the idea being executed, but it's in early stages.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you roll out a new product, right, no matter how innovative the idea is, the product itself has some hiccups along the way, some bugs that it has to fix. You got to go through a couple different operating systems to get the thing really rolling.
Yes.
But once you find that pocket, then I think you got something. I think you got some gold. And I think that's what we're doing, man, is we're working our way to that pocket. So I think that this Panthers team is full of promise and potential, and they're just starting to scratch the surface of it. So I think we're closer to the 30-0 than we are the 0-2. What do you think about them?
Well, it's funny you say that when you talk about implementation, right? Like, you hear Dave Canales talk about great week of practice. That's like his phrase, right? Great week of practice, whatever. And it's like, to me, the difference between when you see like the NFL, right? You can do all this practice stuff. Like I know Lo and I had a conversation. Shout out to my man Lo. We had a conversation where we talked about the difference between, joint practices versus preseason games, right? And personally, I'm a proponent of games. And the reason is because Dave Canales actually said something that changed my mind about it. Because at one point, I was kind of like, man, there is some value, and there still is some value to the, the practices, the joint practices or whatever. But like,
I suppose.
Yeah. But he mentioned, he said, in the joint practices, like these guys know, like the NFL's a fraternity. You know what I'm saying? Like guys genuinely don't want to just hurt each other, right? Even though we do know that Xavier Legette and that guy that he got into a fight with were kind of jawing back and forth in that practice. So that's kind of what led to it eventually, right? But like, there's a gentleman's understanding and agreement of like, we're not gonna hurt each other, man. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So to me, that in-game action is more important. Now, to your point where you're talking about implementation of a plan, with most companies, they have focus groups, they have, testing, beta testing, things like that. In the NFL, unfortunately, your beta test is the preseason game. You're going to risk injury, and then really the real test is like week 1, and you don't really get a lot of opportunities to be able to do that. So that just makes your practice reps and things like that all the more important. So what do I think about the team as far as like what I believe they really are? I think that so the Golden State Warriors some years ago, Mark Jackson was coaching, and they were good. They were really good, right? But there was something missing. That something missing was giving someone else an opportunity. David Lee gets hurt, enter Draymond, right? Draymond Green comes in, completely different set of circumstances, right? Yeah. And so I think they found something with Nick Scorton as a starter. And I know it's weird to just, put one person on that because everybody else played so well. But, man, you know how it is, Ricky, man. If you get in pressure, your secondary can look like the greatest in the world. And even if you have the greatest in the world secondary, if you're not getting pressure like we saw last year, it's pedestrian. And so I think between that and them playing, Princely and just a lot of the new guys and stuff like that, it just something clicked. And I think that this is going to be sustainable. 30-0 sustainable? No. But competitively sustainable, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. They shouldn't be getting embarrassed in football games any longer.
Yeah.
And if they are, then I think that they have to do some soul searching within the organization to say, where is this big disconnect? Because we've allocated a lot of money from a front office standpoint, right? We've allocated plenty of money. We've allocated plenty of draft picks on pertinent positions. We have put a ton of money on the offensive line because that was a real big problem area for us. Then we addressed the defensive front because that was a real big problem area for us. The rookies. I'm glad you brought up Nick Scorton because I agree with you, John. Like, maybe it's not even the individual performance so much as it is just the versatility and the difference that he offers going into that game, right? Now, if anyone knows anything about me, man, I'm an analogy guy, and most of them are off the wall. They're ridiculous. But one analogy that I like to always roll back to, man, because I think that it's very easily translatable to football is like cooking and recipes and different ways that you cook, different cooking methods. And I like to do it because when the football team's playing well, they're cooking too, right? So let's just use the same vocabulary and keep it really easy.
Of course.
You talk about Nick Scorton and what he brings. I'm a firm believer that what Evero's been hampered with the past couple of seasons is that lack of talent, right? And that's like not having the premier ingredients to cook the dish that he wants to cook. But also, there has been this stubbornness from Evero, right? Just focusing on the defense for a second, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a stubbornness, right? That you think about it, and you're like, man, if you're cooking something, right? Like I just braised a beef chuck roast on Tuesday.
Lord have mercy.
Red wine braised beef chuck roast, and I'm letting it go the 3-4 hours so that it'll start breaking down all of those intermuscular tissues and getting that gelatinous tenderness that soothes into the sauce, right? It really makes like this whole dish complete, and it takes hours. But you know what, man? It wasn't getting where I wanted it to get in the time frame that I thought it was going to be there.
Yeah.
I'm using a Dutch oven. I'm using the right tools. I have the right idea. I've done my recipe. I've cooked this before. It's going well, but it's not getting there where it's supposed to get. So me as the chef, like Xavier Evero would be the chef in this situation. You got to try something different every now and then, right?
Absolutely.
Break up the heat. Dial up a different technique, if you will. So I turn up the heat a little bit. You don't want to do it too much because it'll get tough. The same way he doesn't want to sit there and go zero a bunch of times and put Mike Jack on an island, right? Or Xavier Woods, have him covering man-on-man in the slot when he played here. There are things that you have to do to mitigate your risk, but you should change it. Now, when we've offered him these great ingredients and he has done the trial and error to an extent with the pieces that he had, he knows how that dish ended up.
Absolutely.
Now he knows he's got better ingredients.
Yeah.
Try some different stuff. Really go for it. And I think that's what we saw. It's what we're seeing with the different coverages. It's what we're seeing with the different fronts. I mean, this is a different team, man. And a guy like Nick Scorton can be the catalyst because what have we heard about him in practice? You brought it up, John. Dave Canales loves practice.
Yes.
He loves it.
Yeah.
Like practice is the thing for Dave Canales. And you can feel how we want to feel about that. I don't know that I agree 100%. Practice obviously matters.
I don't
but I'm
as
with
much,
you on the
but
game.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on the games. But you know what? If Nick Scorton is bringing that effort and that motor and that drive and that attitude and that mentality and temperament all the time in practice and study in every single facet of what he's doing, that's going to translate to the rest of the team on the field. Not just 100%. His play on the field, but to all the guys around him. These guys are all linked, man. It's an ecosystem out there on the football field. There's a reason that one player can't win a Super Bowl. It's a team sport.
Yes.
And Nick Scorton, I think, could be a pivotal piece to this team, man. So I'm glad you brought him up. That's great.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. All great points, man. Excellent points. I think that Ejiro, who I, affectionately have to apologize to.
Me too.
Because, definitely throwing some shade. But,
But he kind of earned it a little bit, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
That stubbornness.
Yeah.
Come on, man, turn the heat up a little bit.
No doubt.
Different.
I feel like with him, not just Scorton. I don't know if the season is going to progress for Trevin Moehrig the way that it did against the Falcons. But if Xavier is to get a job, it'll be turning him into an all-pro. Because if he plays like he played last week, he will be, right? And not so much in coverage, but more in the box, right? Which I don't know. I had a question to someone about whether or not you could see Trayvon's transition to linebacker, which I don't know if I would go that far. But, man, when he's in the box, man, it's different. It is different. And
how about the fact that they use him as the dime linebacker, though?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, no, will he be, a base linebacker? Is he going to take, Roseboom's spot?
No.
And be the green dot? I don't think that would be terrific.
No.
But I think you're on point with that, man. Like, closer to the line of scrimmage, Vegas did that with him his final year too.
Mm-hmm.
They had him in a little hybrid role of playing the deep third and then moving closer. And then his final year, they moved him in.
Yeah.
And he still had some ball skills that translated when opportunities were there. But one-on-one coverage up close is difficult, man. You talk about just from a nickelback standpoint, it's one of the more difficult positions you can ask somebody to play.
Absolutely.
So asking a thumper like Moehrig to stay in coverage with a shifty guy or even a tight end, it's difficult. But if you use him the right way, man, use him as that dime backer, you get some blitzers in front of him, you take him off the edge. Dude, I think that it's there. I think that there is a possibility that that's exactly what they brought him in here to do. And again, we're seeing them implement the ideas.
Absolutely. And I love seeing that plan come together. And like you said, I do think that because the people that are in the circles, obviously they're going to protect their own, right? So Evero's very well liked within the NFL, ethos. So, they're not going to, throw him under the bus too much. That's for us fans to do, right? But most people have said, like, this guy's a better coach than what that showed last year. It is 100% personnel. And I'm like, well, I mean, through 3 games, there were some stats that I saw where he's, top 8 in, certain categories. And, I think just about every category that there is within the top 15, which is a significant upgrade from where we were, last year. And then the Atlanta game showed that, man, because, I mean, obviously every year it's a different team, man. Like, people train different in the off season. When you play a team late, that team that you see at the beginning of the year, maybe still trying to shake off some dust. But I would have never figured after what you saw in week 16 or 17 last year, in the Mercedes-Benz Dome, that we would have done that to them, especially when you saw what that defense did to Minnesota, just recently. Yeah. So I could have never imagined that would have happened, but I'm glad it did.
I'm glad it did, and I think that there are a couple key pieces to it, right? First of all, let's go ahead and I'm going to stay 10 toes down on this one. Bryce Young ain't J.J. McCarthy,
That's a fact.
Yeah. And Michael Penix Jr., it's kind of like the Dennis Green interview, right? He's exactly who we thought he was, right? Except this time we ain't let him off the hook.
100%.
We kept him on it. We reeled that thing in. We brought him in, right? Shaw Smith-Wade reeled him in himself.
Yes.
Turned it into 6 points.
All the way.
This is an example of the Panthers believing in themselves and the ability to take continuation from a result prior.
Yes.
And I think that that's going to be critical to the success and the trajectory of this football team going forward.
Agreed.
Is the ability to lean on what you've learned, whether it's from positive or negative result, and to translate that into progress and development. Because I think one of the things, man, that I've had such a gripe with Evero, with Canales, with front office, with everything, is that development, taking the next step, man. I got to see everyone getting better in real time, not just being told in the offseason, you should see the practice these guys are having. These guys are practicing their butts off, John. Great, man. They should be.
I think that, kudos to Dave Canales, man, because he's going to do that well. One thing, because it's always going to be like, we hate hearing this. Oh, you're too forward. You're Matt Rule. Oh, we don't really hear enough. You're Ron Rivera. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's kind of, when they're winning, man, they can be who they want. When they're losing, we want them to be so much different than they are, right? So
go pick apart every single thing about
absolutely. Them. And hey, in fairness, man, because like I said, Ricky, as fans, like one thing I'm never gonna do, right? And I know Smitty had the whole situation, which not for nothing, man. Let me just say this sidebar. I had people DMing me like, yo, you the reason that this whole thing happened. I'm like, what are you talking about?
What?
So I clipped a video. I literally did this like, I didn't mean for this to happen the way it did, right? And I've explained this, so people on my channel know this. But
what did you do, John?
There may be some people that watch this that watch you that don't know me, and they be like, okay, I got it now. So the whole Xavier Legette meltdown, right? So Xavier Legette was kind of lollygagging on 2 minute, right? Going into the half against Arizona. I actually took my phone out, and I'll do this from time to time, right? Like I'll take my phone and literally record my TV if there's something that I want to talk about or something that I see that I'm just like, oh man, like I'll give you an example, right? I told a friend of mine, and I should have said this, but I was too afraid to get killed for saying it, publicly, and then it ended up happening, right? So I was watching the preseason game, I think it was against the Bills, right? Deontay Johnson, right, catches the 4th down play that Bryce throws on the run or whatever. He's very involved in the offense. Ball goes to Thielen, ball goes to Tommy, and then ball ends up missing him in the end zone. And, man, when he was in the end zone, flailing arms, looking up like, oh, my gosh, all this kind of stuff. And I immediately said to the person sitting next to me, I was like, oh, yeah, this ain't going to work. It ain't going to work. Because I was like, Bryce is not the kind of guy that's going to be able to handle that. And lo and behold, you know what I'm saying? And so clearly that's him everywhere. It's not just Pittsburgh, not just us. It's been him everywhere he's gone, right?
Yeah. And
so I'm watching this and I'm doing my clips or whatever, and I'm yelling at the TV. I'm like, man, come on, y'all, let's get going. That's what I'm talking about. Sense of urgency, blah, 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 or whatever, right? Well, little did I know, and I didn't even really think this through. I saw Xavier Legette running down the, to his position, and I thought he was in motion. But then I started thinking, I'm like, well, why would a wide receiver go in motion in 2 minutes? Like, they would just line up really quick and just, get a playoff, right? And so I wasn't really thinking that, because I didn't really see him walking. And I seen Bryce do this. So I'm thinking Bryce is telling him, come on down the line, go in motion or whatever. But then I realized, like, I put it out there, started gaining some steam or whatever, and I'm getting all these comments, and I didn't look at the comments because I was looking at the game. And then I'm looking at my comments, and people are killing XL. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, what's going on? So I look at it, and I see like, oh, man. So he was like dragging, looking on the sideline, walking all slow. You know what I'm saying? Then he comes walking down. Ricky, I'm convinced that if I never clipped that and put it out there publicly, all that stuff, he's probably still playing right now. Because I don't necessarily believe this hamstring thing, man. I really don't. I think this hamstring thing is sitting him down, getting him back together. He had just got publicly humiliated by Mark Schlereth for not blocking. Right? And then there's the whole thing about not dragging your feet out of bounds on that catch. And then you come back into this game, and it's another effort issue. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Which prompted Smitty when Kyle Bailey asked him, like, yo, people are on Xavier Legette. I heard David Newton ask Dave Canales, hey, there's a video floating around about Xavier Legette not walking or kind of walking, getting back to the huddle or whatever like that. I'm serious because they didn't replay it. The announcers didn't say anything. The only sight of that clip, maybe some people would have like said something about it, or whatever. Right. But man, once it hit those like Instagram pages and I heard my voice, I was like, oh, it's over. And then it went crazy on there. And I'm like,
you hit the aggregators, man. It's only a matter of time.
That's right. Over. It's a wrap. And so I ain't gonna lie, man, I felt bad about that. But at the same time, I hope that this leads to him developing at a higher level.
John, I'm glad that you bring that up with XL, and that was I love how organically all of this came about in this conversation, right? That we get to XL because, I mean, honestly, man, like this is like the way that it's all unfolded a little bit, right? And these are important players that we're banking on, not just as a team, right? Like not looking at this from a content creator or as analysis or anything like that, as a fan looking at this. These are guys that you should be banking on. And that's why one thing that Smitty was talking about with that, weak ass city remark that he made that rubs me the wrong way. Look, first of all, I'm a born and raised Charlottean, still live here, probably will live here for my entire life. I love it here. My family is here, and I ain't got no bones to pick about it, man. I'm happy about where I'm from and where I am. And I will tell you this too, man. I've been a Hornets fan and a Panthers fan ever since I'd never had a choice, right? Like these are my teams, and so I am used to losing, and I still love them and support them. I could draw a line when it comes to personal issues with certain things, and I can separate those things because I do I got a moral fabric to me.
Of course.
Which is hilarious for Smitty to call people unloyal and weak, but I'll digress on
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah.
XL though, right? I'm nervous about it, John.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you why. And it's not because I don't think he's a talented guy. I think he's an extremely talented guy.
Mm-hmm.
I did a similar post as you when XL got in the preseason fist fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Throwing hands with the Browns defender.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care about that. I don't need a team of church goers, church boys, right? Like I don't need that, man. Like I'm cool having some fire and some attitude and some edge to you.
Absolutely.
But what does it benefit the team? That's what I always ask. And what did that help XL? And what did that help the Panthers? Because when they came out in the first 2 weeks, they didn't look like a team that took that fire and took that edge and played with it. It didn't look like they learned anything from it. XL looked like he probably could have benefited from some more snaps and some more timing and rhythm with his quarterback and his offense. The offensive coordinator and the head coach probably could have benefited from actually calling the plays for the teams that they're going to be playing on week 1 and week 2, as opposed to the reserves. But for XL, man, I don't know if you saw this, but today he was in the locker room. This is Thursday. He's in the locker room and he's talking to everybody and they're asking him, hey, where are you physically? Like how do you feel? Are you ready to play?
Yeah.
And man, John, something's off, man. Something doesn't seem good.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to speculate. I'm not trying to do any read between the lines and say that I'm right about this and that, oh, look at this. This is a huge development. No, it may be absolutely nothing. It may be a guy who is super bummed out that he's not out there on the field with his team. But he may also be a guy that we saw get into his own head last year.
Agreed.
And it affected his performance.
Yeah.
And he has spoken himself about the mental aspect of football and how he is working to try to be able to deal with all of that and compartmentalize in a healthy way. But I'm hearing it again here with this, where are you physically? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm ready. They say, well, Canales said that you were really lobbying to play last week and you were ready to play last week. Are you ready for this week? And he goes, got to do what the coaches tell me to.
Yeah.
What the coaches let me do. That to me doesn't sound 100% like a injury is holding him back from seeing the field. They asked him, where you were fighting to play last week. Are you ready to play this week? And he's, look, man, whatever the coaches tell me I can do, or whenever they tell me I can get back on the field. And someone asked, is it the coaches or the trainers that are asking you about this? And he goes, both. They said, is this a situation? I believe it was Joe Person said, is this a situation where you want to play, but they're not putting you back in? And he immediately, you saw, man, it clicked in his head. He was like, I should stop saying what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He was like, nah, it ain't nothing like that. It ain't nothing like that at all. But the more they dug into this, John, the more they asked him about his hamstring. How does it feel? What's bothering him? What is he able to do? He's like, I'm able to do anything. I'm able to do whatever the coaches tell me. But I can't get on the field until they tell me that I can get back on the field. That sounds a whole lot like somebody who is being given a break.
Yeah.
And I hope that it benefits him, regardless of what this is. Let's remove the speculation for a second and just talk about the fact that he's out for a couple of weeks. It doesn't seem he's likely to play this week. If he has a 2-week break and he recovers and he's healthy after that 2-week layoff, I hope that he comes back rested physically and mentally.
Yes.
And that he's ready to play. I am rooting for XL as a Panthers fan. I'm rooting for XL as an XL fan. But I also just don't, in good faith, I don't really like to have conversations that are disingenuous. So if something is bothering me or seems off, I'll bring it up just so that it's out there in my world.
Absolutely.
Right? That when I have that conversation later, I'm like, man, see, I got to start trusting my intuition a little bit because that felt weird. And that's what you talked about with the Deontay Johnson thing and with the XL walking back to the huddle on the 2-minute drive in the first half. Either his awareness on the field isn't there, man, where he understands what's happening in the game, right? We saw him having a hard time knowing where the boundary was on a catch. We've seen him have a hard time understanding the flow of the game script, what's happening. And it makes me nervous, man. This is a dude who we are really relying on.
Yes.
But hey, Jalen Coker comes back healthy. XL comes back rested. This offense can absolutely take off. We're seeing this with pieces missing.
Yeah.
And we're trying to evaluate from a partial scope. And that's just really difficult to do.
I think XL, there were times where this was happening last year. in the Philly game last year, you could see that, there was some, laziness on some blocks. Obviously the drops were the biggest, tell, and that's the loudest voice in this whole conversation from last year anyway. But I feel like maybe when they drafted him, you knew that it was a project to begin with, right? One good season. And even then, like, there were things that just weren't necessarily in his, route calendar, if you will, that he wasn't necessarily, good at that moment, and he could develop into that. I do also find it fascinating. Cam Newton had a clip about mixtapes, and talked about like, hey, your mixtape doesn't mean you're going to have 1,000-yard season or whatever like that. There was something that he said in there that was, more telling than anything else. When he talked about the type of routes, like when he was working with Route God, right? And Cam Newton was being critical of the type of routes that Route God had him running, right? And it was just like, you're not going to be doing stuff like that. So like, why are you even building muscle memory towards something?
Because it looks good on social media.
It looks good, absolutely. And not only that, man, like one thing I noticed, you mentioned Coker. One thing I noticed about him, man, like there were a few times before really the deep offseason stuff started, OTAs and stuff like that. Bro, him and Bryce glued at the hip. Everywhere Bryce was, he was. And I'm like, that's important. And I said it on the show. I was like, that is important. That's going to come back and it's going to make a difference because they have 100%. Chemistry. Yes. How many times do we see videos of Julian Edelman and Tom Brady working out on the beach in the offseason, or Tom Brady and Gronk? You know what I'm saying? It wasn't everybody, but it was just like those key guys that's like, hey, you're my guy, because Coker can take that role. Like, I feel like if Coker was available in that Arizona game, we probably closed the deal, man. I really believe that. Yeah. And I don't think that game goes the way that it did anyway, like to get to the point we got to.
You talk about being glued at the hip and how important that is, right? To have that familiarity, comfortability with each other as dudes and as teammates, right?
Yes.
Well, just look at even Tedero and McMillan right now.
Yeah.
Is like, those are guys. Those are dudes who like each other's company, that trust each other, but their timing is still developing.
Yes.
Even when we see T-Mac winning routes and being open and Bryce throwing with the capital A anticipation that we know him to be remarkable with, it's off by a bit, right? Because there hasn't been enough time of everyone in that Dutch oven together and melding the flavors together to make the whole dish. So, XL, I'm not criticizing a young man for living his life and taking the opportunities that are afforded to him by the fame and situation that he's in. I thought he lived his best life in the offseason. It looked like he was having the greatest time in the world. But I knew that if it was a rough start for this guy, fair or unfair,
it's going to be a problem.
It was going to be a conversation point, man.
Yeah.
And that's why when you see these guys that are all business, I'm not saying you got to be all business, but when that's the perception, at least, that is out there of you, you get a little bit more grace, a little bit more leniency, right?
And not only that, Ricky, also, and I hate to cut you off, I just want to say this one quick thing. You are only, like, the only thing people are going to criticize is what you, like, Herman, we used to always say, don't push send. Don't push send. Yeah. It's like, you are only going to be critiqued by what you put out there for us to see, right?
That's right.
If I see you busting a squirrel open, cool. Don't drop no passes. If I see you riding four-wheelers and horses, cool. Maybe the routes need to be a little bit more crisp, because then it brings in the question like, well, what's your offseason like? Do I believe XL worked his tail off? Absolutely. I believe them when they say he's one of the hardest workers on the team. But just don't show us all that. Go live your offseason without putting it on social media for everybody for consumption. You know, because, I mean, I know you're building a brand. I get that.
Yeah.
But, man, you catch that ball against Philly, the brand going to build itself. Because he'd have been out of here.
And he'd have been out of here. You talk about, like, the shortcomings or deficiencies to his game coming into the league from college, and what people anticipated him needing to develop more, and what he was already good at. The wild part about it for me, John, is the juxtaposition of how it flipped on its ear.
Yeah.
Like, what he was good at in college is what he has struggled with in the pros on a consistency level.
Yes.
His hands, his strong hands, his high pointing the ball, his contested catch situations, just out physicaling everybody else. That was what he was good at.
Yes.
The route development, he's done that. That play in Philly is a great example. Yeah. Watch him get leverage and win that route. He won it, man. And that was a difficult catch. Like, I get it. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that was a routine, no one's around you, you're in stride, it's at the numbers catch. It was difficult. He's a first-round wide receiver,
Yes.
and he is going to be expected to make tough plays. The same way that T-Mac is going to be expected, the same way that Bryce Young is raked over the coals anytime that he's not perfect.
Absolutely.
Because he was the 1.1, and we gave up a bunch of assets for him. That's just what comes with it, man. It's the nature of the beast.
That's the gig. The gig is the gig. Yeah.
That's it.
Absolutely. So I got a question. One, I want to ask, and I'm going to double this with a clip that I'm going to play. Do you think that we need more wide receiver help? And I want you to listen to this because obviously on the heels of T-Mac's injury or whatever, or the calf, strain, I ran across this clip. I'm going to play this audio. You won't see the video, but I'm going to play the audio real quick, and you tell me your reaction to this.
Hey guys, Dr. Morris, injury experts. So Tedorowick McMillan, who's had a pretty solid debut for the first 3 weeks, popped up today with a do not practice secondary to a calf injury. Now, calf injuries come in two separate types. There are calf strains and there are calf bruises. Traditionally, we think of this muscle group as the gastrocnemius, which is the muscle on the outside or closest to the skin that has two heads, the medial head and the lateral head. Now, there's actually a muscle underneath it called the soleus, which is closest to the bone and is predominantly responsible for standing, whereas the gastrocnemius is responsible for running or propulsion. Now, the issue with the gastrocnemius muscle is that it is notoriously slow healing.
Does that scare you?
Yeah, to an extent. Calf injuries worry me because of what he's talking about how easily aggravated they can be and how finicky they could be in recovery.
Yeah.
And for a skill player, like a wide receiver, the planting, cutting, and exploding are the three elements that I worry about very much for re-aggravation, right? But I will say this about that clip. He doesn't know which injury it is with Tedorowick McMillan. And to be honest, we were just talking about XL and his hamstring injury. And how certain are we that it's a hamstring injury for 2 weeks and not a minor tweak and a sit down for 2 weeks? So how do we know that Tedorowick McMillan didn't just get his very first NFL vet day as a rookie, right? And that they don't want to sit there and tell you that he's already getting better in rest days.
Little gamesmanship, yeah.
Little gamesmanship, right?
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, though. The calf is a real thing. T-Mac is running more routes and playing more football than he ever has in his life.
Yeah.
That's just what happens when you go from college to the NFL. This is your profession now, man. This is what you do 24 hours, right? Even if you're not doing it, it's in your head. This is what you do. This is what you get paid for.
Yeah. Good point.
You can see it in the games, man. He's gassed sometimes. That game against Arizona, the entire daggone receiving core was gassed at the end of that game. And for some reason, they kept calling deep, long developing routes. But
yeah, I didn't understand that at all.
Silly stuff, man.
Yeah.
Silly stuff. Like, you got to kind of have an eye on the ball there and realize that, hey, we got to do a favor here for our team, right? Clock management, all those things. There's just ways to go about that. Canales is also a second-year head coach, and he called plays for 1 year before that as an offensive coordinator.
Which makes me wonder. Let me ask this question real quick.
Yeah.
This makes me wonder. Do you think that he should be more face of the organization, handling all that kind of stuff, and maybe not necessarily pass it off to Brad Isaac because we don't know if he's ready?
Yeah.
But maybe even potentially bring in someone like, next year or whatever. It's kind of hard for him to do that. Like, if he has success this year, he's probably going to continue that, right? But I think that what makes Nick Sirianni so great is that that's what he is. He's kind of face of the organization, if you want to call him great. I know some people, you go to 2 Super Bowls and win and then not have a losing record. Like, I'm calling you great, period. I don't care what people say.
Absolutely.
But I think that him, developing the, Steichens and the Gannons and, whoever, well, I think Gannon was there, whoever else that he, brings up like that. Do you think that Dave needs to kind of focus maybe in that direction as well?
Well, the question there will be, John, and you're talking about the difference between like a CEO type head coach,
yes,
and like a manager level head coach, right? Where you're involved in the day-to-day, or do you just oversee the operations? I think that my qualm with that would be, do I have a really big confidence level that Dave Canales, outside of his offensive repertoire, his X's and O's knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
right? His development of players and people, because he's a very hands-on guy. That's why he got the job.
Yeah.
If you remove that element from Dave Canales, what are you selling me on? Because
Good
if
point.
it is on the CEO perspective of it, he's never done that. Like that, I wouldn't feel comfortable about hiring that person to do that job.
Mm-hmm.
But if it is about the relationships that he can individually nurture and that his calm, never shaken personality is what is needed on the sidelines and what is needed to talk to all the players and what is needed in practice, all of his little Monday or hang out with friends Monday, walk down the street holding hands Tuesday, and all those other things, whatever it is that he calls them.
Mm-hmm.
If those are his bag of tricks, if you remove them, what are we doing? Like, shouldn't we have looked elsewhere?
Mm-hmm.
And it's only the second season, so I want to give him some more time. You mentioned it yourself, man. Is Brad Idzik ready? What we saw in those 2 games in the preseason, did you like that more?
No.
I didn't, right? And that may have been very scripted. And like, can these guys execute what we're asking them to execute so that it was just like a simulated game experience, not even actually getting real game value out of it, which again would be one of my big gripes on why you did that.
Absolutely.
In a critical moment. But, I think it's fair to wonder, does Canales have a lot on the brain in these games? And can he process everything? I think that that's just one of those, you got to get used to it. When we look at these defensive rookie coaches, man, like Mike McDonald, good example, right? You look at what he does. Dan Campbell is a good example with the Lions. They're just culture guys. And Mike McDonald calls the defense. But when you got a defensive guy, the offense is seems like such an intricate type of situation, right?
Yeah.
And such a delicate. I feel like the players on offense tend to be a little bit more delicate from like mental standpoints as well. You got quarterbacks and wide receivers who are thought of as 2 of the biggest divas on a team roster.
Of course, yeah.
And if they're not happy, it can rock the entire boat, and then everyone's capsized, and you only got 8 life jackets, right? So there's a lot of people managing that goes into that. But when these other coaches find success, it's because they have these bright young offensive coordinators. But look what happens if those offensive coordinators don't get results. The Houston Texans, man, is a team that we are directly correlated to often because of the CJ Stroud thing, right?
Right.
Well, they also took a first-time head coach in D'Amico Ryans, and they took a first-time offensive coordinator in Bobby Slowick. And Bobby Slowick created these awesome concepts that CJ Stroud was executing at a high level, and everyone said, these guys are next, man. Hell, we wanted Bobby Slowick to be the next coach of the Panthers after that year.
Yeah.
Then he got fired the next year. And what have the Texans done?
Stunk.
Sometimes, man, it's like an overreactive way of being. And I know that fans of the Panthers, I speak for myself at least, are really tired of losing, man. And it's a hurry up and wait type of thing that we are being told.
Yeah.
And that sucks, John, but it is part of what we're doing here, that I think you got to give him at least a little bit of time to see if his method works. And if it doesn't, I'm not sure taking a little bit away works. Might have to take the whole thing.
So with the hurry up and wait, mindset, do you think that we hurry up and wait with the receivers? Do you think they need more help, especially in the wake of some of these quote unquote injuries, that have sprung up?
I think that the wide receiver addition they need is Jalen Coker. Before the season, I remember getting into conversations and debates with people, and they said that I was an XL hater because I said that Jalen Coker was wide receiver 2 on this team.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's going to be proven without a doubt.
Yeah.
If he is able to get healthy and come back, I think you'll see it, man. And it's the slight misses that we've seen with Renfro and Bryce Young getting used to each other. Also, very different body sizes and compositions. So the placement on some of these balls, I'm telling you, man, even Adam Thielen is bigger than Hunter Renfro.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like,
that's right.
He's used to throwing to a bigger guy in the slot so far in his career in the NFL.
See, nobody, and I'm so glad you said that, man, because the detractors are always going to be the detractors, right?
Right.
But the detractors will try to tell you that, oh, man, look at him just missing wide open. I'm telling you, it's different. It is different. When you don't have Adam Thielen, that's your go-to guy, right?
Yep.
One thing that I love that I saw was the rub route that we saw that Matt caught on that 4th and 3, because that to me was the very play as to the reason why they wanted to get rid of Adam Thielen, because it's like in those crucial situations, we want to make the rookie that's you got to be that new guy. because it was Adam. You know, versus Kansas City, big fourth down, Adam. Versus Tampa Bay, big third down, Adam. You know what I'm saying? And so I like that they had the gall to be able to do something like that. But I don't think, obviously you don't plan for Coker to go down. But like you, I think that if Coker's in some of those spots, like where Bryce kind of threw it a little bit further away from, Hunter Renfrow, that ball probably gets reeled in. It might not be the best ball, but it gets reeled in.
That's right. It's still not like a 100% perfectly thrown ball.
Right.
But the placement on that ball, you can see where that would be a different conversation if it was a different receiver.
Yeah.
Glad you bring up that rub route too. And like, yeah, you want T-Mac to be the benefit, but why also did they bring Hunter Renfrow back when Jalen Coker was hurt? Because they need a smart, nuanced receiver running that slot position, the intricacies of that position. The other element of that rub route was how Hunter Renfrow sold that.
Absolutely.
Right? Because that pick play is one that you see often called for offensive pass interference because wide receivers are overzealous and they don't know exactly how to time it and how to sell that route.
That's a great
One
point.
thing that we are constantly told about Hunter Renfrow is his ability as a route salesman.
Yeah.
Right? How often do you see him run verticals? Not often. But how often do defenders believe he's about
that
to
he
run
will?
vertical?
Yes.
Often. Right?
Often. Because you know that he can. I mean, it's something he can do, right?
Yeah.
It's not something you want him doing. But he sells it so well, like you said, that, hey, it could happen. And I really hope that their chemistry, works out, man, because I do think he can be a really important piece to this offense, but it's a chemistry issue, clearly.
It is. And so with your overall question, and I'm sorry, man, I keep getting tracked, sideways and going on.
Look, that's what we're here to do.
But no, you ask overall, do they need wide receiver help? I would love it. I think that this wide receiver room is still hurting for speed.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, not just a take the top off threat. I know that that's what a lot of fans want with Jimmy Horn Jr., right? And I might be quasi one of them because I think that you spent a 6th round pick to draft this guy.
Why is he not playing, Ricky? Don't tell me special teams. Please don't.
Yeah.
That's what everybody keeps saying, but I'm sorry. I'm not.
John, the crazy thing to me, man, just speaking candidly here, the way the social media team was highlighting Jimmy Horn Jr.
Up. Yes.
I mean, dude, all the time.
Thank
I
you.
saw almost as much Jimmy Horn Jr. as any other offensive player not named Bryce Young.
Yes.
On highlights. And then FanFest, I remember I wasn't able to go to FanFest this year, but I remember everyone that was there. One of the highlights that they spoke about was Jimmy Horn Jr. and how utilized he was and how involved he was. And then, when we had Devin Tompkins last year and you saw them starting to use those slingshot and those orbit motions, at least that eye candy of it, right?
Yes.
Drafting Jimmy Horn Jr., I was like, okay, that makes a ton of sense because that's what they were looking for with Devin Tompkins. And now they got a guy that they feel they can develop into that role. Yep. Maybe he doesn't see, 35 snaps week 1. Maybe he sees 7 or 8. But to be inactive, a healthy scratch for the first 3 weeks, when you're down Jalen Coker, you traded Adam Thielen and Xavier Legette. I'm not trying to be funny here, but seems like he might have caught more feelings in footballs thus far through a few weeks.
Yeesh.
That is a situation where you got to explain to me like I'm 5 how the guy that you just drafted this season isn't worth giving a shot, right? And again, man, you had Josh Neiman start at left tackle for us week 1. And then he's been inactive.
Yeah.
So he's good enough to start in place of the starter if he's not there. But then one bad game and he's inactive. And you're telling me Jimmy Horn Jr. can't get a sniff of playing time and he was drafted. I mean, why not just cut him, man? You know what I mean? Like, why did you keep him? Why did you hold him on the 53? And don't tell me it's because you're worried about someone else taking him. You ain't worried about it right now.
Exactly.
I don't know, man. I think you ought to try that.
I have a major problem with it, Ricky. I ain't gonna lie to you. Like I've been kind of, I haven't talked about it much because myself and my host on Mint Street Mondays is, my co-host, I should say. He's like, well, man, the whole special teams thing. Look, does Mac play special teams? And I get it. Mac was, drafted in the top, our first pick that last year. So you're not going to expect that. But XL also doesn't play special teams, right? And so to me, that's just not a good enough excuse. You can't tell me that he's not a decoy, that if you run out there and put in motion, that people aren't going to be terrified. Because what was it? end around that Xavier Legette ran or whatever that play was, where he kind of drifted backwards and lost 2
Tried
yards.
to force 2 in a row to him like that.
Yeah, exactly. You're telling me that you wouldn't want to see Jimmy run that type of play, that a defender knows, like, if he gets, vertical anyway, it's a wrap. Like, he's gone, right? That kind of speed, that you don't have that. We haven't had that in quite some time. So it is mind-blowing to me. And what I think would be the biggest travesty is if they did what you said, right? Which is, what I was going to bring up next. Suppose that by the deadline, they do release him. You know what I'm saying? Right. Or trade him for something else. Maybe that's the play. Keep him healthy. There's a team out there that would want him. We could use help at, I don't know, linebacker or, some other position that they see. And it's like, well, we let him go. So then my question to you is like, do you think he's part of whatever needs would be met during the deadline? And what needs do you feel like we should address coming up on the deadline in October?
If somebody is sitting there and they're like, I'm trying to improve my golf game, right? Like, and they're looking to buy let's just say they're looking in the market for a new driver or fairway wood, right? Mm-hmm. And we have been sitting here playing golf with rusty clubs, but we got this other club just sitting in the garage that we're selling everyone as a great club, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Why would they believe us, though, that club is so great when we haven't even been using it, but we've been throwing out rusty clubs for the last few weeks on tour, right? Like, that's my big worry about that, is that if this is some sort of like elaborate plan to hide Jimmy and keep his value high because you don't want people to see that he's not good if he were playing, well, don't you think that you're kind of telling him that he's not that good if he can't get a spot on the team, but you just brought Dan Jacina back?
Which is nuts.
But isn't that just like alarming? So I don't know, man. I don't know how you could involve him in anything, but could he lose his spot and his bearing with this staff if someone were to become available? If the Miami Dolphins start off 0-4, and then we come into Carolina and we beat them, they're 0-5 heading into the deadline. I mean, Jalen Waddle's on the hook for a ton of money. Tyreek Hill's probably not going to be back.
Right.
Tua Tagovailoa, who knows what's going to happen with him? Mike McDaniel's on the hot seat. Do they go on a fire sale and they say, hey, look, day 2, a couple of day 3 picks? Well, yeah, we'll eat 20% of that, guaranteed for Jalen Waddle. And does Carolina look at it and say, man, we've been itching to get some speed on this team? Right.
All right. Well, let me ask you a question then, because you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Because I said this after that whole situation with Arizona. If you do that, you know who's in that trade package.
You think Xavier Legette's in there?
100%.
You think that Miami would want him?
I don't know.
Because see, here's my big thing, man. What's his value right now? Right?
Not much.
When we got a 4th for Johnny Mingo.
Johnny Mingo,
man. Like, we got a 4th for him, right?
Right.
That was based off of this, like, he hasn't been put in the right positions. He hasn't been asked to do the things that he was supposed to do. He's still 23. And he was like 23 years old, though. He was young, right? Xavier Legette's going to be 26.
Yeah.
And he's got a few injuries under his belt already in the NFL. He's got drop issues. His deep analytics, if you look at those, I mean, they're scary. I don't really care about analytics as much as I care about what I see on Sundays.
Yeah.
But some of the things that I see on Sundays are scary. And so I just don't know that he's going to have value unless it's as a placeholder for one of those day 3 futures, right? Instead of a 2027 5th or 4th, do you add him as a sweetener? Maybe. And that would be a real big condemnation on the front office and how they did that draft, if you want to be completely honest.
Without question.
It's going to be rough, man. And that's another part, though, that I'm not sure they're ready to concede and tuck tail with yet. They got rid of mistakes from previous regimes and have been heralded for it, rightly so. But they have not cut a lot of their own cost here. And they're letting those players, like Trevin Wallace was off to a very rough start to start this season. Didn't look terrific in his opportunities last season. Now, granted, he also has lost Josie Jewell. But that's a point, you ask about deadline, that's a position that I think any fan that has watched these 3 games would tell you is a must. Josie Jewell going down was terrible.
Huge.
Problem is, where are you going to get a starting quality linebacker, man, on the trade market that's not going to cost you future first-round picks or something like
You're
that?
not. Yeah.
You're not.
Mm-mm.
And so are you better off? You can't put the green dot back on Trevin right now. You got to keep his mind clear, man. Let him figure out all of this other stuff, because I thought he looked a little bit more comfortable
He did.
last week.
Yeah.
I still think that he suffers from getting caught up in blocks and not shedding as quickly as you would want him to. I think that he's taking an extra click to diagnose, and that's what's getting blockers onto him.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could continue to get him in advantageous situations, the athleticism is there. This is a young
100%.
dude. That's a guy that he's a snot knocker, right? Like, he's going to come through and he's going to put you on your ass. Like, and you need that kind of attitude out of the linebacker position.
Yep.
I'm not ready to cut bait with him, but if you're talking about a position that needs upgrading, that's the one. But would they include Trevin to get a proven player when Trevin has that potential and the draft capital behind his name as a former third-round pick? Maybe.
I think you got a 2-game sample size to see the truth, like between the Patriots and then the Dolphins. Like, you'll
That's
know,
right.
You'll definitely know. And the one thing about him and, others, on the team that, like with the XL thing, I know it sounds like we just, dogpiling XL, right? But man, it's effort. There's a whole lot of, that's why I found so fascinating what Smitty had to say. Is because at the beginning of Smitty's conversation with Kyle Bailey, and I highlighted that, he talked about, like, I can't teach a dog how to bark, can I? Kyle's like, no.
Right.
Basically what he was insinuating was like, I can't teach you effort. We can teach you all the X's and O's and everything like that, but you cannot teach someone effort. Well, that's all we were talking about. So we got called weak city and all this kind of stuff because we were complaining about the effort. It's not so much,
right.
Yes,
right.
Obviously the drops are bad, the not dragging your feet, that's bad. That's stuff that can be worked on. You know what I'm saying? Look at Quentin Johnston right now. Many people thought Quentin Johnston, it was a wrap for him. Man, bricks for hands. Man, Quentin Johnston looks like a Pro Bowler. You know what I'm saying? After working with Harbaugh. And I think it would have happened not just with Harbaugh. I think it just was his natural development. Now, obviously, Harbaugh and his staff have helped tremendously, but I think it was just going to take him time. But what's the one thing you never heard about Quentin Johnston was an effort issue.
Yep. Work ethic was never questioned with him.
Right.
And then, I had hopes with XL, again, not to continue on that, train here.
Right.
I had hopes with XL that bringing in T-Mac was also going to be a huge addition for him. The way that Ladd McConkey, I think, benefited Quentin Johnston a ton. Because, I mean, look, man, we talked about it. All this stuff is tied together. Everything is tethered on the football field. When a defense can key in and make your job more difficult, then you have a higher level of difficulty in doing the basic functions of your job.
Absolutely.
I thought that Xavier Legette wasn't supposed to have to play cornerback one and get bracketed and play, double team safety coverage as a rookie. That wasn't what he was supposed to have to do, man.
Right.
But he did. And so I thought coming in and playing in a more natural supporting role and having Tedero McMillan, or just even this point guard offense, right? Spread it around. At one point, we thought we were going to have Adam Thielen, Tedero McMillan, Jalen Coker, and Xavier Legette. And we talked about the riches of that room. Right now, we are seeing Tedero McMillan do it with Hunter Renfrow, David Moore, and Bryson Tremaine.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that is where I just think that there is so much context, man, that when we have these conversations that are necessary. And for Xavier Legette, when he comes back, it would be awesome if it coincided with Jalen Coker's return a week or two afterwards as well, right? See what this offense could do together.
Right.
JT Sanders is hurt now too, but sorry, I'm going way off track from what we were talking about.
You're good. So I'll reel it back into a point that I wanted to, or a question I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
I might start a hashtag as we get closer to the trade deadline because of someone that when Josh Nijman was put in, as the starting left tackle, the first thing I thought about was hashtag free Brady Christensen. Because I'm like, this guy had a market. Why did we bring him back? I know he likes it here, right? Clearly he wanted to stay here. But, man, Cincinnati could use, what I'm saying? Like, there's so many different teams that could use a Brady Christensen, right? Because he's so versatile and all that. Like, do you think he becomes a part of a deal that would, entice a team to send, maybe linebacker help, linebacker depth, or whatever that looks like?
I think that he's a really enticing piece at the very least. His contract is favorable. Utility offensive lineman that can play the entire keys on the piano, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're a valuable commodity, man. And I think that's why we wanted him back so much.
Yeah.
And I understand the frustration of why didn't he get that shot at left tackle. I think that was more just a game plan thing for that specific opponent.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they wanted to lean into the physical nature. Game flow changed a little bit of that. But I think they had every intention of just running the ball a whole lot against the Jacksonville Jaguars and mitigating that pass rush.
Yeah.
And that probably is better for Yash. Brady struggled a little bit on an island as a left tackle in his action last season when you watch him. I didn't think that he was outstanding. I didn't think that he was an entire liability. But when you bracket him with another player and you move him inside and you take away a little bit of that room for error, I think that he's a very solid player. I would question why don't they feel at all comfortable giving him the right guard looks right now as opposed to Chandler Zavala. If Zavala continues to play like he did last week, that would be a move that I would consider.
Yeah.
But would he be an enticing trade piece? I think so. I think that you could add him as a sweetener with a, early day 3, late day 2 pick if you get a big time player. But the problem for the linebacker position, you bring up the Bengals, John, as far as we know, we pillaged their best linebacker. We got them off the practice squad, right?
Yeah.
And they shout him out because he came out and he plays the special teams reps in the first week on the team. So, I'm not knocking that. I hope that young man gets a new opportunity here and he has an opportunity to make a role for himself, to carve this out. So I hope he does it. I remember watching him play at Wisconsin. I can't think of his name right now. Is it Mo? I can't think of his name.
It's a tough pronouncement, but
but he had a nice stint there at Wisconsin as a really good downhill linebacker. That I think that's something that you could see them trying to develop. But where are you going to find outside of the Philadelphia Eagles? I don't know. There's a team that's rich at linebacker, and the Eagles I don't think are going to give up Jahad Campbell. I don't think they're going to give up Smile Mondon. I would love to get Smile Mondon Jr. I was, hooting and hollering to draft him in the 4th round right before they did. But I just don't know where you get the answers, man. If you want to be completely honest about it, I
think they're going to stand pat.
They're sitting. Yeah, I get the feeling, man, that they are where they are unless a giant name becomes available and they make a splash. That's all I see.
Yeah, I agree. I don't. It's one of those things where it's just like, man, we just got, when you watch. It was bend, don't break at that position, last week. And so you just compensate with what they're doing with Trevin, you know what I'm saying? And how Ijiro's getting creative with his, stunts, blitzes, and, things like that. So, and you just hope for the best, So that brings me to more on the offense, man. Do you think they make any deals like, and this is going to sound crazy. I saw someone tweeted earlier that Alvin Kamara may be on the trade block potentially. And look, you got Chuba, you got Rico Dowdle, you got ETN. I mean, but that's a different animal. That to me, that is what Jonathan Brooks provided as far as the catching out of the backfield. Is there a world that exists where you think that they make a move for Kamara? Or do you think we're just too loaded at running back? And especially when you consider that we're in the bottom of the league, if I'm not mistaken, at like yards per attempt. So this is the running game isn't necessarily working the way that you thought it would. Is that something you feel like they may try to take a flyer on, if possible?
I highly doubt it. Just gut feeling, right? I highly doubt that would be something that they would look at. I don't know exactly what his financial ramifications are. I would assume that he got paid within the last year or two, didn't he? I think so. That he got an extension. So I would assume that his money is pretty significant. They gave Chuba the extension.
Yep.
I don't think that they're done with Jonathan Brooks. I still think that this team believes in Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I still believe in Jonathan Brooks,
Same.
man. Call me crazy all you want to. That is a dynamic football player, and he's young, man. He's young. So I think that's evidenced as well by the Rico Dowdle length of the contract and price there, right? That seems like a bridge. Kamara, I think, would muddy that up a little bit. And I'm not sure that they're willing to do that. But offensively, I could see them looking around, whether it's for another tight end, possibly. If Tommy Tremble can't put some stuff together and they realize that, hey, look, this may just be a role player. He may end up being a special teamer for us. But if they're not convinced that JT Sanders is the guy and he's dealing with some health issue now, and they're not sure that Tommy's the guy, tight end is one of those positions you might be able to find a contributor on. I'm not saying like a high end.
You don't think they'll lean on Mitchell Evans? You think they'll lean on Mitchell Evans?
Mitchell. I like Mitchell, but how much, tight end, they always say is one of the more difficult positions to acclimate quickly to in the NFL. From college to the pros, it's one of the biggest transitions.
Right.
So how much are you going to put on Mitchell Evans' plate early on? And now out of necessity, you do what you have to do, right?
Yeah.
But I think you see Tommy Tremble still see a good amount of usage and involvement here to kind of insulate Mitchell from being asked to do too much and possibly even meet the same fate as some of these young tight ends that we see that get out there and get tasked with a giant responsibility. It's too much. The weight is too much, and they never recover from it.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is a developmentally minded staff, so I just can't see them going out of their way to bring in a veteran player that's past that threshold. They've got this imaginary like force field of 30 years old, right? That if they're over that, this team just doesn't seem to have a ton of interest in them. No matter how good they still are, they don't want to allocate any time.
Do you like that as
a fan? No, I don't.
Yeah,
because I think that your mission should be to improve the football team
100%.
And if there's somebody that not only improves a position room, but improves an attitude and brings winning history into the fold, dude, that's what a young team needs. Not more young people to work it out together. You know what I mean? Like, that seems like one of those idioms where you're like, how many dummies does it take to screw in a light bulb? Like, we don't need more dummies. We need a person with a ladder, for crying out loud, that's been to the top, right? Like, that's what you need.
Captain America pulling the pin, and the flag dropping. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not a huge fan of it, but I do think that is what it is, right?
Yeah.
And I have to stop myself sometimes from being unrealistic about things that they have told me not to be unrealistic about.
Right. Let me ask you this question before we move on to the last topic. Cade Mays, is the competition over?
It ought to be.
we know that Austin Corbett's coming back in 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
It's a wrap, in my opinion. It's over.
Austin Corbett coming back in 6 to 8 weeks would be a nice insurance plan for Chandler Zavala.
Yep.
If he continues to struggle.
Yes.
Because Austin Corbett, let's not forget, lost the center job in his initial foray into the NFL with the Cleveland Browns. He was in spring training in camp. That spring training, listen to me, I'm talking about baseball right now, man. I'm sitting here, I'm a Cubs fan. I'm got different things on my mind. In training camp, he was in a position battle for the center position. He didn't get it. And that's when they moved him over into the guard position. He played tackle at Nevada. This isn't a guy that had played any meaningful center, but he's a highly intelligent, good communicator, and we know how much his staff appreciates stuff like that.
Yep.
Highly intelligent, good communicator, and he's athletic. And they wanted to be able to use him on those pulls, right? And getting their offensive linemen on the move. That's important to the system that they ran. But looking at what has happened with the snaps, looking at what has happened with his health, there's not much that you can validate that decision with anymore.
Right.
And Cade Mays has come in and performed as well and better every opportunity he's gotten on his second go round here.
Yes,
he got criticized a lot for what he was doing as a right guard, and we even used him as an emergency right tackle, I believe, a handful of times. But that's a little bit more out of position for him too. I think the center is his calling. I think he's great with it. Bryce Young seems to have a really nice rapport with him on that. I don't see these operational issues that you saw with Austin Corbett. Granted, it's one game so far this year, and it's at home. That always helps the operation standpoint. Let's see what happens in New England against a very serious interior defensive line.
Milton
Williams, Christian Barmore, Tonga, the nose tackle up there. Joshua Farmer, the rookie from Florida State, is showing some really good promise. Like they've got some options up there.
Yeah.
That's going to be a test this week. But Austin Corbett 100% should be either playing right guard until Robert Hunt gets healthy, or he should be backing up Brady Christensen or Chandler Zavala at right guard and left guard until either one of them gets healthy.
Ricky has spoken. No truer words, in my opinion, could be spoken. That's spot on, man. So you talked about it. New England. Let's talk about season outlook, man. What's your prediction for Sunday?
Sunday, I got us 30-23. Carolina gets the W.
Let's go.
And you know what? That's not just like a homer pick, man. I really think that the matchup is one that we can exploit.
Absolutely.
I think that I want to keep running at them. I know that they got a good run defense, but I also think that, with our zone scheme and with our two-headed monster of Chuba and Rico, I want to see them work the play action angle a little bit more against New England. New England operates out of nickel personnel for like 75% of their snaps. I don't know how much of that is also kind of dependent on the fact that Christian Gonzalez has been out. So maybe they do a couple of different schematic things if he's back on Sunday. But they like to bring guys up close. They like to try to keep everything in front of them. I think that we could run some of this misdirection. I think we could run a little bit of the play action, change the pocket, move the pocket. They're a decent pass rushing team. Harold Landry's had some sort of crazy career resurgence over there. We had an opportunity to bring him into Carolina, and I was very against it. I was like, I don't know, man. The tape on him is not great at Tennessee. He's playing well, man. K'Lavon Chaisson is out there. He's got 10 quarterback pressures for him in a sack and a half. That would be leading the Carolina Panthers right now. So there's a lot of storylines to it. I think what it comes down to is Drake May is the best quarterback that we will have played this season. I think that he's better than Trevor Lawrence. I think he's better than Kyler Murray. And I know for a certain fact you could put it in stone that he's better than Michael Penix Jr.
Is he better than Bryce Young?
Man, that's a really tough call. I think that he's wildly talented. I think he's razor sharp between the ears. But I still believe in Bryce Young very much, John. Like, I could be called a Bryce Young apologist at times.
I am, but I don't care. I wear it proudly.
Yeah, and you know what, man? I'm cool with it too, man. Like, I really think that he's got the goods. I know that he's not overpowering from a physical trait standpoint, but let's also not act like he's sitting there walking around with Chad Pennington's arm and throwing wet noodle throws. Like, I literally watched Jalen Hurts throwing weak throws, right? Like, I've seen him struggle to get it outside the numbers. And Jalen Hurts is one of the strongest physical people you'll ever see in your life. So can we stop this whole, like, he's small so he can't do stuff? Until he shows you he can't do it, stop telling me he can't.
Absolutely.
Because I've seen him make throws. I've seen him put the ball on the money. I've seen him put it 40 yards in the air. How many times are you really going to ask him to throw the ball 70 yards in the air?
You're not.
If you're asking your quarterback to do that very often, man, you're in a world of hurt to begin with.
Yes. I mean, that to me, that's what plagued us in the Super Bowl was all those long developing plays, man. You get a little bit more quick game and you can, kind of fend off Von Miller playing out of his mind. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Turning around guards and tackles. But, I, like you, believe in his ability. I think that he is, I think he's getting a better grasp each time he gets an opportunity to go out on Sundays of the offense, just like from last year. Obviously, things change. Your personnel is completely different. You know what I'm saying? Without Thielen, who's your safety blanket for 2 years. So things are going to continue to develop. I could see, honestly, this being a quote unquote, like people, tried. I know a lot of people talked about prevent, and they were like, man, well, in Arizona, they were just in prevent. I'm like, yeah, trying to prevent what? The pass.
Yeah.
And they weren't in prevent the whole time, right? That's just a narrative, right? So I'm not saying that the 325 yards are nothing or everything, but they also weren't nothing, right?
That's right.
But I could see a breakout. I could see, one of those 350, or more games where they start realizing like, yo, Bryce is feeling it. They start off aggressive early. And man, I'm telling you, like, Ricky, I don't know what you think about this. I loved what Dave Canales did right out the gate, in this, in the game against Atlanta. Like, pass. Oh, here's a run, but pass. Because when they were successful last year, they put the ball in his hand and let him be what all these people kept saying that he was coming out, in the pre-draft evaluation, Steph Curry. You know what I'm saying? So if the running game is not working, why not put it in his hands? Quick game, little quick outs and things like that. He's going to master that because he's dead accurate with that kind of stuff. So this could be one of those games where they allow that, and you could see the 2023 Green Bay, or you could see the Atlanta game, at the end of last year. And that would be something fascinating because if that happens, now you're building on something really amazing. So you say a win in New England. Between now and the Dallas game, if we won every game, we'd be 5-2. What do you think our realistic record is going into that? Do you feel like we could be that, or do you feel like maybe there's an L in there?
Yeah, I think the 5-2 is realistic. I think that this game against the Patriots might give me my most pause. And actually, the Jets still give me a little bit of pause because I believe in Aaron Glenn as a head coach. I think that's a really good football coach. I think that his team plays as he coaches.
Yeah.
And that scares me because I believe in him. But I think 5-2 is realistic. 4-3 maybe is more likely because it's any given Sunday type of situation where things happen. So John, I'll tell you, when I did my prediction at the beginning of the season, I predicted 7-10. And it's the first time that I've predicted that the Panthers finished with a losing record in like 5 years. I've been one of those like eternally optimistic people that I didn't care who was going out there, man. You know, and every year I start by saying we're going to go 17-0. I do the right answer up until, training camp is over and preseason's over. Then I have to be realistic with myself. 7-10. If we ended up 7-10, I would still be disappointed, to be completely honest. This is year 3 for Bryce Young. And as much as we just both talked about how much we like Bryce Young and believe in Bryce Young, I'm ready for results to transfer. Same. I'm ready for consistency to show up out my front door.
Same.
I want performances where I don't have to contextualize the heck out of them and find silver lining to everything.
Yes.
I'm ready for just like, hey, y'all saw Bryce ball yesterday? Y'all saw the Panthers kick somebody's ass yesterday? That's what I want, John. I want that, and I want easy peasy descriptive ways to say that my team is a better football team than yours.
Absolutely.
And it starts with that quarterback position for me because Bryce, I believe so truly in him that I need him to start showing why I believe so truly in him on a regular basis.
I couldn't agree more. Hey, man, because look, if he doesn't, hey, man, it's some dudes, man, not named Arch Manning. It's some dudes in this draft, Ricky.
That's right. And you know what, though, man? How long is Dave Canales, Dan Morgan, if they're still here, which I'm assuming they will be, their leash seems a little bit longer, in my opinion.
Yep.
If they're still here, how much do they want to sink into Bryce Young? If Bryce Young finishes this season, right, with 5 or 6 wins again, and I'm not saying that wins are quarterback stats. I know that they're not. Don't come at me for that one. I just mean that if Bryce's career win-loss record is a hair over 10 wins in 3 years, with everything that they have done in the past 2 years of trying to bring in pieces and build this the way that they want it to be built.
No, it's a wrap.
It's going to be a wrap, man.
Yeah.
Because they're going to say, hey, look, we can do something different. And we've built the situation the way that it is, that someone walks into it with Teteroa McMillan, Jalen Coker. I won't even say Xavier Legette, but I'll say Teteroa McMillan, Jalen Coker, Chuba Hubbard, Jonathan Brooks potentially if he's back. Really good offensive line, really good defensive line. And Trayvon Merrick, J.C. Horn, Derek Brown, that you could figure out a way to make something shake with that.
100%. So let me ask you this then. Let's just spitball this out there, right? I know it's a little bit of pre-draft stuff, right? But if you had your option, let's just say, okay, if you're at I'll say the number 1 pick and pick 10. If you're at number 1, I think if you're in the top 10, you are considering the quarterback. Because if we're in the top 10, your record prediction comes true, right?
That's right.
I got to say this, man. I like this kid, man. I really do. And I don't – there's 2 things that I want to happen with Bryce Young. One, I want him to be successful, right? If it's not with us, somewhere else. I hope that he gets success somewhere else, primarily because there's people that I want to see be proven wrong as a result of that. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
Because of how bad he was, treated through through some struggles, right?
Yep.
But that I've reconciled the fact that may not be with us, man. It may have been just too much to overcome to put on his shoulders, but he could go somewhere like with Minnesota and Kevin O'Connell, or he could go somewhere like, I don't think McDaniels will be in Miami or LA, you know what I'm saying, or somewhere like that, the Rams, and thrive, learn from the mistakes and not necessarily have to be, your coach is more your personality as opposed to you having to, assume that role. So then with that being said, if you're at pick 1, who you taking?
Man, that's so dirty, John. That's so dirty to ask me that because I don't know, man. Now, if it's only a quarterback, Lenore Sellers, is he even draft eligible this year?
I'm not sure.
I'd have to look at that.
I'm pretty sure he is. Yes, he's got to be because
he's a red shirt. Yeah.
The consensus number 1 pick is him right now by every NFL draft scout. Most of the the executives are all like, even if Arch were to come out, Lenore Sellers would be the number 1 pick.
Arch is a name. It's
period.
I'm sorry, man. I said it. I talked about this last year with Arch Manning when everyone was talking about he's so much better than Quinn Ewers. As a college quarterback, Quinn Ewers wasn't anything spectacular or anything like that, but he showed just as much, if not more, than Arch Manning did. Arch Manning had a couple of nice runs and threw a deep ball, and everyone's like, yeah, look, that's Peyton Manning out there reincarnated. No, it's
Got
not. It
out
just
on
says
the
Manning
island.
on the
Look,
Yeah.
what do you think made Jalen Walker look so much like a superstar?
Right.
Got out there on an island with Jalen Walker and got folded. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
And so yeah, you're right. It's a lot of running. It's a lot of, one read and I'm bailing.
Yep.
It's holding on to the ball too long, all
Yep.
that stuff. But go ahead.
But no, but I do like Lenoris. Lenoris, the talent there is immense.
Yeah.
And what you would do, I think, especially if you're coming off of Bryce Young, right?
Mhm.
Like, let's take into account how much I think that would play into their next quarterback decision.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if they were faced with a supreme athlete like Lenora Sellers, that has also shown the nuance and the ability to play the quarterback position
Mm-hmm.
at a high level in the SEC,
Yep.
I do think that they would kick the tires there. I think it would be difficult not to.
Yeah.
I also like the kid out of Oklahoma. I know that he's got the hand injury
John
right now.
Mateer.
Hand.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mateer. I think the Mateer has looked good. The kid out of Indiana, Mendoza, is a really intriguing player. But to give you a couple of non-quarterback guys, though, Ruben Bain Jr. is still a guy that I would consider at number 1 overall. That's a dude, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I like both of our rookies a lot. If anyone knows like the work that I did with my buddy Edgar Salmingo Jr. for the pre-draft stuff, we put out the draft guide.
Excellent. Yes.
Thank you, man. But I was extremely high on Nick Scorton. He was my edge 4. I had such a high grade on him, and I got ridiculed for that. And when the Panthers took him, I was happy as a clam. I mean, like ecstatic about it. And I believe in him very much. He's 21 years old, right? Or 20 years old. I think he just turned 21. Super young, super untapped potential. And you're already seeing it against NFL players in his rookie season. Princely Umamielen, on the other hand, I really liked as well. I had a round 2 grade on him.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if he ever develops into more than a situational guy, just because of some of the physical limitations. Now, I don't think that would be a bad thing either, though. Like, look at a guy like Nick Bonito, right, for Denver.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a every single down edge-setting outside linebacker on that team, but he is a game changer.
Yeah.
You don't have to be the Jared Verse of the world to be the to make an impact on your team.
Right. I agree.
But Ruben Bain Jr., on the other hand, may just very well be the Jared Verse that everyone is looking for in this next draft. The other name I would give is Caleb Downs. I'm also a big fan of Caleb Downs.
Yeah, of course.
Safety out of Ohio State, he's terrific too.
Let me ask you this: how do you feel about there's a couple of linebackers for the same team that I really like. Whit Weeks and Harold Perkins Jr. How you feel about both of those guys?
Harold Perkins Jr., because I did a little bit of work on him last season because he was eligible and he had a lot of, people talking about him possibly coming out. Where would he go? Because he had the injury last season.
Mm-hmm.
My concern with Harold Perkins Jr. is the size. He is undersized. He is dynamic. He is a lightning in a bottle, being able to get to the quarterback. So maybe in that DPR role, I think that could work. Maybe if you're looking at and now he played more off ball. I'm not calling him like an edge rusher necessarily. He might even play a hybrid. Like you could see him playing some big nickel type of looks. Like I think that you would have to be a little bit creative with what you do with Perkins.
You know what scares me when you say that? There's one name that I think of. Anytime I hear the word hybrid, I immediately think of Isaiah
Jeremy
Simmons.
Chin.
Or Jeremy Chin too. Isaiah Simmons, Jeremy Chin.
Yeah. And it's because that's the failed stories. Right. And Jeremy Chin's not really a failed story. Jeremy Chin's playing some decent ball. And he played good ball for the Commanders last year, being put into the right positions. Just has limitations. And you got to figure out where do you get the most juice for the squeeze by putting him out on the field. And I think Isaiah Simmons still could have been useful. I just don't think anyone figured it out early enough. And then it just kind of snowballed for him. Right. And that's a big concern with these hybrid players is what do you do early on? How do you get usage out of them? And how do you build confidence and develop them? But for a guy like Perkins, maybe that the pass rush is enough for him. He also has really good instincts, I think. I think he knows the game of ball. And for linebackers nowadays, man, I'll tell you what I struggle with the most. Instincts don't seem to be a widespread thing of guys coming into the league. I think that there is a lot of...
Why do you think that is?
I'm not really sure, man. I think it's maybe the development of the position. It's not so much of relying on instincts and internal processing as it is keys and looking at offensive linemen to know what you're doing and within a scheme. Schemes dictate so many different things nowadays. I talk with JJ Hardy, who's Panthers culture on Twitter. Everyone knows, that him and I have a good relationship. We're buddies, and we talk about some of the things that he hears and some of the things that I hear. And there's a coach for the LA Rams, or a player that played for the LA Rams, that was telling us that, or telling JJ that they asked them to play a little bit more flat-footed in LA, which seems counterintuitive to how to play the linebacker position, but it's just a way that they coach that position, and it's what they're asking those players to do. And I think that that's where you run into the situation of coaches coaching in an individual way and not to a player's strengths. And you coach the player, not the scheme, right? And so I think that that's where we run into a lot of this. I don't know if it's hubris or something from the coaches, where they say, no, mine is smart enough. Mine can overcome whatever deficiencies you have. Like, I think of a guy, Brandon Smith is a name that I think of often for the Carolina Panthers out of Penn State, right? Off-ball backer, had a world of talent, great size.
Yes, he did.
Never could get coached up to the point of putting it together. Was that on him, or was it on coaching? I have such a hard time seeing these uber talented guys, man, these young men who are living out their dreams. I have a hard time believing that they aren't good enough to do something that they were drafted to do. I think that it's a position that coaches should be held to a higher standard.
Man, the way he played in the preseason, you couldn't have told me he wasn't the next.
Couldn't have told me he wasn't next,
Good
right?
Lord, yes.
I know it. And so that's what I'm saying, though. If you flash like that, how come it doesn't work? Now, it is on the player sometimes, so I'm not going to sit here and say it's not. But yeah, sorry. I am a tangent. I am literally a
No, it's cool,
tangent.
man. It's cool. It's cool.
But yeah, Whit Weeks is a really good ball player. I would absolutely love to have him. Anthony Hill Jr. for the Texas Longhorns, another linebacker that I would look at and say that I find a lot of promise in him as well.
Well, man, you got us excited. When you start talking draft stuff, man, like I said, if you guys don't know, like Ricky said, he and Edgar Salmingo, is that right?
Salmingo Jr.
Salmingo,
yes, sir.
Have a amazing draft guide that they've started, that they're going to start doing every year. I downloaded it. It was extremely helpful for, what's really cool is because I was never really into the draft. Like, I'm a draft guy, but I'm not a nerd, right? Like, I don't watch it. I watch the whole draft, right? And I always have, even before I was a content creator. But following the players, seeing how these guys are doing now outside of, not even drafting them, right? Like, I was a big fan of Deion Walker. I was a big fan of what's the tight end? Gosh, I can't think of his name right off the top of my head, but I heard his name. Which one? Oh, Colston Loveland.
Loveland. Yeah.
I was a big fan of his. And once I downloaded you guys' draft guide, it was really helpful. And I still go back and reference it even now. Looking at some of these guys and just man, I wonder how that would have looked for us. And everything. And so I'm very appreciative of the work that you guys have put into this, man, because it is fascinating. I will link that in the description below so you guys can go check it out for yourselves. And then also, follow their channel, because you guys actually have a specific channel that you do this on, correct?
Yeah, Edgar and I started a podcast called Draft Crush, where we, did our little mock drafts, and then we did analysis of national mock drafts, and then we had beat reporters and people linked with teams to come in and give their analysis on certain players, their draft crush, if you will. And then we had some guys, that just came in, and like Matt Waldman, I had him on the Bow Body show when I was doing my own show for a little while. If you don't know who Matt Waldman is, he's one of the best individual evaluators in the game of football, in my opinion. He is self-taught. Literally, he just trusts his process and he makes changes to it. His whole thing is on transparency. He tells his system. But this guy is incredibly smart. He comes on and he gives 20 different evaluations in an hour and a half long period. And it's just a fascinating thing. So if you want to go and watch an episode, that's the one that I would recommend. Go watch that. We have Brooks Austin talk about the Georgia players. It's really cool to hear people smarter. You and I were talking before this. It's cool to hear people who are smarter than us talk about ball, because that's where I learned, man. I still go back, John. I'll look at diagrams of defenses. I'll look at shell coverages. I'll look at the mechanics of, an under concept. I will literally have to go back and read all this while I'm watching film, just so that I'm sure of what I'm seeing. But yeah, Draft Crush is the name of our show. And then I've got Panthers on Tap with my good buddies Curtis and Bryson on Wednesday nights. And anywhere else that will have me, man, I am always down to talk ball, and I'm super pumped that I got to do it with you finally.
Likewise, man. And I tell you, you talked about it. learning from people that are smarter, than you, man. I look forward to having you and Edgar on in the off season, man, because I want to pick your brain and you tell me why I'm wrong, tell me where I could be right, and what we need to be looking for, in the draft, depending on how this season ends. Hopefully we are not in the top 10. Hopefully we are not talking about a quarterback. But if we are, I know you guys will be able to lead us in the right direction. So,
yes, sir.
Ricky, man, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, man.
You can find him at his Twitter handle or X handle. I still call it Twitter, but
it's Twitter.
really, really good listen on Spaces. So check him out there as well. Give him a follow, and hopefully we get this dub on Sunday, man.
Yes, sir. Let's go.
So it's been another episode of the One Carolina podcast, y'all. We appreciate you for watching and tuning in. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you never miss a video. Until next time, keep pounding.